whereas pointer is nothing but it stores the memory address of another variable, whereas function means set of statements, set of programs, it perform the task. When the command call by reference, especially in call by value, the main program will send the data and subprogram it creates its own copy of the data and it will work on that. Structure is a collection of heterogeneous elements, whereas when the command pointer, it stores the address of another variable. Welcome back to one and all. Myself, Vasanta, lecturer in Computer Science, Vidhyaashram, Pre-University College, Temple of Excellence, Mysuru. Today, we are going to start with the fourth session of Pointers chapter. Whereas in the previous session, you have studied regarding static and dynamic memory allocation, their difference. Whereas static memory means here memory is allocated at the time of compilation, whereas in dynamic, memory is allocated at the runtime. Whereas in static, the memory is fixed. Whereas dynamic, whenever the variable requires, only on that time the memory can be allocated in dynamic memory allocations. Then, what do you mean by free store as well as memory leak? Whenever memory we are using, if that memory is not deleted, then there is a probability to get memory leak. Then, self-reference structure. What is the difference between pointers and object? Then, pointers to objects. Whereas in pointers to object to call the functions, we are using arrow operator. How exactly it will work? Regarding that, you have studied in the previous session. Whereas on today's session, you will come to know regarding pointers and functions. Whereas pointer is a variable, it stores memory address of another variable. Whereas function means here it contains set of instructions, or we can call it as some of statements, and it will perform some specific task. After doing that task, it can generate the result to the main program. Then how these functions can be called, that is by passing the reference as well as by passing the pointers. How we can able to invoke a pointer, especially under functions. Then invoking function by passing the reference, pointers and structures. Regarding that, you will know on today's session. First, we'll discuss about pointers and functions. Whereas already I told you, function means set of instructions. It performs some specific task. Whereas a function is a named unit. It having some name. Named unit of a group of programs, statements designed to perform a specific task and returns a single value. After calculation, it will generate one single result here. There is a close relationship between pointers as well as functions. Whereas pointer is nothing but it stores the memory address of another variable, whereas function means set of statements, set of programs, it performs the task. After performing the task, it generates the single result. But a function uses arguments in order to carry its operations. Argument is nothing but values. Functions may contain arguments, or sometimes it may not contain argument. The arguments are usually provided to the function by the calling functions. Some main program to subprogram or some subprogram to main program arguments can be passed here. Functions are invoked using two methods especially. One is by passing the reference and one more by passing the pointers. In two methods, functions can be invoked. That is by passing the reference or by passing the pointer concept. Now one by one we'll discuss, that is invoking functions by passing the reference. Here when parameters are passed to the function, how exactly here it will work. For example, consider we have one main program here and one more subprogram. One main program and one more is subprogram. The subprogram can be called as functions. The main program will send the address of the data. Where exactly the data is present, that address here it will send to the subprogram, and subprogram will take the data from that address itself. Whatever data on that address is there, it takes the same data and it will work on that. if there is any change made in the subprogram, that also affects the main program here. That is, parameter or argument is nothing but values. When parameters are passed to the function, that is subfunction, subprograms by reference, the formal parameters become reference, or we call it as aliases, that is by some other name. For example, in the main program, I am to call that variable A and B. Whereas in subprogram, the same variable it will take and it will work, but by some other name. For example, the same one will take and it will work by C and D. That is, to the actual parameters in the calling function. The called functions does not create a copy of original value. That is, the subprogram is not going to create its own copy. It's take the data as it is from that address, rather than it references to the original value by their reference. Whereas when they come on call by value, there what happens? The main program will send the value to the subprogram, and subprogram will take the copy of the data and it will work on that. Whereas in call by reference, what happens? The main program will not send the value on that place. It will send the address, reference, where exactly the data is present. And the subprogram will take the data from that address and it will work on that. For example, at the time of calculation, C value may changes, D value also changes. On that time, it affects the main program also, because in call by reference, on that address, whatever data is there, it takes the same data and it will work on that. But when they come on call by reference, especially in call by value, the main program will send the data and subprogram, it creates its own copy of the data and it will work on that. That's why if there is any change in the subprogram, especially the value, that will not affect the main program in call by value. Whereas in reference, what happens? It will not going to create its own copy. Rather than it refers the original value by their reference. On that address, whatever data is present, it works on the same data itself. Thus, the called function works with the original data only. Whatever original data we are given in that address, it works on the original data only. Any change in the values gets reflected to the original value. If I change the value here in the subprogram, that also affects here. Call by reference is useful when we need to change the original values using a function. This is mainly used when you want to change the values with the help of functions. We are using this call by reference or pass by reference. Now we will explain this with a program. Write a program to swap the values of two variables using pass by reference. What do you mean by this pass by reference? Already you came to know. That means here it will send the address of the data. On that address, whatever data is there, or that data only it will take and it will work on that. Whereas swapping is nothing but consider the variable A and one more variable B. Here we have value 10 and here we have value 20. Then here swapping is nothing but interchanging the value of two variables. On that case, directly we cannot swap the value. On that time, what we will do? We will take the temporary place, temporary area we will take. For example, temp. In first case, we will move the value of A to the temporary place. Then next, now this space is free. Whatever value in B, that here we will move. Now B is free. Then later on, temporary value here we will move. Like that, the swapping will take place. Now, we have to start with the program. First, we are starting #include iostream.h. This is a supporting header file for cin as well as cout function. In the program, if you're using cin as well as cout, then we need this header file. Then next, #include conio.h. Conio.h is a header file. It is required to perform clear screen as well as getSaves function. Then as usual, we are starting with the main program, void main. Here, void swap int ampersand comma int ampersand. Here, this is the prototype. That means this is a function name, swap, and return type we are given as void. It means that there is no any return value here. To address, we are passing int ampersand, int ampersand. Then, we are initializing the value as well as we are declaring A equals 10 and B equals 80. Here for A, we are initializing 10 and for B, 80. Then in the output screen, whatever be the original value, that here it has to display. That is original original value. It has to display. Then display the values of A. A value here it will display 10 and B value here it will display it as 80 before swapping. Then we will call the swap program, especially swap function. Swap A comma B here we are written. That means the control will transfer to swap here. Here void swap int ampersand x int ampersand y. Then here first we have created one temporary place int temp. Then whatever value in x, that is A, we are moving to temporary place, first phase. Then whatever value in y, that we will move to x here. Then later on, the temporary value we are moving to y. Then we are closing this function. That means we are calling the subprogram. Then once again, we are displaying swapped values. What will be the swapped value? In the output screen, we want to display. Then swapped value. Swapped values it has to display. After that, on this case, the value is interchanged. Now, what will the A value? A value take it as 80 and B value will take it as 10. Like this, the program will work, that is by call by reference. Now, is it clear? Next, we will move on passing by pointer. Whereas in call by reference, by some other name, the subprogram will take the values on that address and it will work on that. Whereas in call by pointer or pass by pointer, the function is invoked by passing the address of the actual argument. The main program will send the values address, especially here to the subprogram. Address is passed. These arguments, address, are copied into formal arguments of the called function is copied here in the subprogram. Using these pointers, we can make changes into the actual argument of the calling function. Here also, as we refer in pass by reference, the call function does not create a copy of the original value. Rather than it refers the original value by the pointers. By pointer format on the address only, whatever data is there, it takes the same data and it will work on that. Here also, it will not going to create its own copy, but it takes the data from that address and it will work on that. That will explain an example program. For example, same program we will take, but here we are using pointer concept. That is here, ash include iostream.h header file, then conio.h header file. Then we'll start with the main program void main. Here if you observe void swap int x comma int y we are given. It means that in the previous case here int ampersand here we are considered, whereas here int x, especially for x, address operator we are used. Star operator we are used here. Then here also int star y. Then here also we are initializing the value a equals 10 and b equals 80. Then in the output screen it will display the original value. Consider this output screen. There first it will display original values. Whatever may be the values, that is a equals 10 it will display and b equals 80 here it will display the value. Then we will call the subprogram swap ampersand a ampersand b. That means the control will transfer here to the subprogram swap, that is void swap int ampersand x int ampersand y. Then here we are creating the temporary variable temp. Then the address of x is passed to temp. The address of y is passed to the address of x. Then temp will move to address of y here. That's like this, the swapping will perform. Then it will display after calling subprogram. Then it will come to the main program once again. Here cout swapped value. Then here display swapped values. Then in the output screen once again a value here already it is swapped. Now the value it will display a is 80 and b is 10 it will display. Then get ch, close the main program. It means that in pass by reference as well as in pass by pointer, in both the case we can able to pass the arguments here. Whereas in call by reference, by some other name it will take the data on that address and it will work. Whereas in call by pointer on the same address by the same name it will take and it will work on that. And next we'll move on to the next concept, pointers and structures. Whereas structure is a collection of heterogeneous elements. Structure is a collection of heterogeneous elements. Whereas when they come on pointer, it stores the address of another variable. We can create a pointers to structure variables also is possible here. For example, for structure, we are using the keyword struct. Then student is the structure name here we are given. On this, we are taking two values. One is roll number and one more is fees. But roll number we are considered as integer format and fees we are considered as float format. Then we are creating object here. Then address as well as structure both we can able to use. The address of sp dot roll number is equals to 104. Like that we can able to initialize, we can able to access here. This completes your pointers concept. Whereas on this chapter you have studied regarding what do you mean by pointers, how to declare a pointer, how to initialize a pointer, the difference between pointers as well as array, then array of pointer. Whereas when they come on pointers and array, the compiler will store the address of first element. But when they come on array of pointers, their compiler especially it stores the list of address here. Then what is the difference between pointers and structure? How exactly your data can be accessed? Then what is the difference between new and delete operator? Whereas new operator is used to allocate the memory space, whereas delete operator is used to deallocate the memory space. And then the difference between static memory allocation as well as dynamic memory allocation. With that, you have studied pointers and function, under that pass by reference as well as pass by pointer. Whereas in this chapter, the major questions you may want to get like write the difference between new and delete operator, or what is pointer. Write the difference between static memory allocation as well as dynamic memory allocation. How to declare a pointer variable of int type, or how to declare a pointer variable of float type, or how to declare a pointer variable of character type. Like that, you may want to get the question from this chapter. Next class, we will meet you once again with a new chapter. Thank you for all of you.